Jesus Christ.
All right. Here we are. We are starting it off hot. We are talking about the fallout and the results from the Cash in the App pay-per-view. Trademark to be determined, obviously. Trademark pending. August, I watched your entire live stream watch along on YouTube when you were watching Money in the Bank, and your reactions had me on the floor. You brought up so many important details. You brought up so many important things moving forward from this. You and I both had some pretty accurate predictions that were turned into spoilers. So let's talk about it. What a pay-per-view it was. My jaw was on the ground almost the whole time.
Yeah, an old man turned 98. He won the lottery and died the next day. Cash in the App pay-per-view. This was Alanis Morissette. That was Alanis Morissette. You're welcome.
Thank you. Oh my God, yes, duh. Isn't it ironic?
Don't you think? Okay, I'm sorry. I promise we're actually doing stuff here. I say we break this down in pay-per-view order. I just have it written here because this is a very nice way to have it all written out. What I will be saying, however, is we are not going in depth. This is in depth in terms of what happened in the show itself. These are not going to be conjectures moving forward what this story is going to be. Those will be separate videos coming out later this week. So if you're looking for that, look forward to those. These are just strictly going to be speaking what you saw at the pay-per-view and our thoughts and feelings about that there. First up, Destiny, we had the women's Money in the Bank ladder match, which I said when it happened live about 30 times, Destiny is going to lose her freaking mind that they started this show with this. So I'm going to let you start with your thoughts on this. I'm sure you have a lot.
I do. So if I may, I watched your watch along, not live. I was listening to it on my drive home from Montana, so I was not joining your watch along live, but I was watching live. And when you mentioned that I would be pissed that this was not the main event and that this kicked off the show, had I not seen the whole pay-per-view already, I would have agreed. And honestly, when I did see that it wasn't main eventing, I was pretty pissed. But with hindsight, I am so thankful that the main event was the main event, and obviously we'll touch on that later, because it was absolutely incredible. But this match stole the damn show. This was so good. The women, as you said, the women's action and the way that they utilized the ladders and their offense was next level. It was top tier. Now, what you and I have talked about when we were going over our predictions was how Naomi would be phenomenal in this role. However, we didn't have the faith in the organization to actually put the rocket on her, strap it to her, and launch her to the next level. But oh my God, did they do it. Hallelujah. I'm so thankful that they actually have the faith in Naomi, because she has been proving herself time and time again, especially in the time that she spent away from WWE during her hiatus. She proved herself to be the top talent in the women's division, and now her coming back and the stuff that she's been doing with Bianca, with Jade, as a tag team and as a singles competitor, her match at WrestleMania with Jade just solidified herself amongst the greats, especially on the current roster today. I am so excited for where this is going to bring her. Now, Naomi did say that she is looking at Tiffany. She's not really looking at Io. However, I am hoping and praying for a Naomi, Io Sky type of feud somewhere down the line, because that right there is a match that interests me more than anything else.
Yeah, I do want to emphasize there from you later down the line, because I very much do believe so that Naomi and Tiffany, I think Tiffany's going to be the one that gets cashed in on. It works very nicely for her story that the way she was able to steal her championship is the only way she gets it taken away from her. She has defended Nia Jax. She beat Charlotte Flair. She's beating the best of the best right now, and the fact that she gets the title stolen away from her in the same manner is a very nice way to protect her. I do think in the sense of Naomi was perfect here. Naomi was perfect here, and we did mention that. We did also mention our lack of faith in the company for putting Naomi in this position to actually succeed. I am very happy they did. I know pretty much for a fact that she's going to be a very transitional type champion. I think she's holding this briefcase to win the title from a champion and then drop the title to, in my opinion, she's going to be dropping the title to Bianca Belair. I think that story's going to come to head, and then they're going to circle back to Bianca versus Jade to have Bianca put over Jade for Jade's moment. But I love this was a very natural way. It puts Naomi back in the spotlight, and instead of just having her win a championship to uplift these women to that level, also having her gain the ability to say she's a former Miss Money in the Bank now is a brilliant addition to put on her name and add an extra layer of respect. Couldn't be happier with this winner. The only other person I would have liked to have seen walk away with the win is Alexa Bliss. Stop. My device back there. For the same exact reasons.
Your robot slave.
Yeah. Let's relax. Let's relax a little bit, right? My best friend, Alexa.
Oh.
Volume 8. Alexa, I love you.
I love you too, Home Skillet.
See? Girl boss. Hashtag girl boss.
Amazing.
I just for the same reason of Naomi winning it, in that these women are former certified main eventers. They have not been in the big title picture in a long time, and this is a brilliant way to reestablish both of them. And so I really wanted one of these two at the end of the day, and no matter which one won, I'm very happy. Of course, Julia, Stephanie, and Roxanne have bright futures ahead of them. I take nothing away from them, and they didn't need this accolade right now. And Rhea as well, she's a superstar in her own right. Triple H never became Mr. Money in the Bank. Shawn Michaels never became Mr. Money in the Bank. Shockingly, Chris Jericho never became Mr. Money in the Bank. That's like the most surprising one to me. But I don't think Rhea Ripley needs it either. I don't think every woman needs to hold every accolade. Some of them need to slip through their fingers, and I'm very much okay with Rhea not becoming one.
And this is something I really wanted to touch on just real quick. You didn't mention this on your watch along, but this is something I wanted you to point out, so I'm going to point it out now. When we were talking about our predictions, your prediction was that Rhea was going to win. And something that I said was that they could bury her under the table, a la Big Show being buried by Alberto Del Rio in a last man standing match, or, you know, Brock and Roman, their moment, and having it go down that way. And that was a way of protecting her. Which kind of happened because she was buried by 20 ladders. Obviously, it wasn't at the end of the match, and it wasn't what kept her from winning. But the moment happened, and I was like, oh, hell yeah, I called it. It was awesome.
You absolutely did call it. And I think the only reason I didn't really pick up on it was because it was so early in the match. In terms the fact that it happened, like, it was like 6-7 minutes into the match. I at no point during it was I like, oh wow, Rhea's out of the rest of this match. If they had done that same spot 20 minutes in, I would have absolutely lost my shit and been like, oh my god, Destiny was right. Rhea's out of this. This is crazy.
Yep. Right. But as you said, it was a little too early. But also she did get back up and kill it. There was a moment between her and Alexa. I hope they revisit that sooner than later, because that stare down.
And brilliantly shot between, they were both sitting up. It was just like the Undertaker, obviously for different reasons, but it was just like, ironically with these two stars, oh my god, it was just like the Undertaker Bray Wyatt moment, where Bray was doing his sit-up, and Undertaker did his sit-up at WrestleMania 31, except there was the ladder shot in between them, where both women were sitting on the ground, looking at each other, and you could see the shot through the ladder. Oh my god, it was good. Totally forgot that it's almost like a callback to Undertaker, who we have seen her heavy influences, Rhea Ripley's heavy influences from that, including at the latest Raw special episode where Undertaker came out and kind of did the Undertaker salute at Netflix. And of course, Alexa Bliss with her obvious ties to Bray Wyatt. Really awesome moment there.
That is so insane. I didn't even think about that touch, because my initial thought was that you were going to mention Brock Lesnar instead of Bray Wyatt, but Bray Wyatt doing his little creepy bridge thing makes so much more sense, especially with the Alexa Bliss tie-in. That was so cool. Props to the women all around. This was a show-stealing match, and they said, "Beat that, boys." Challenge accepted.
Yeah, and I'm first off, I'm a pansy when it comes to matches like this. If you watch the watch along, 90% of it is me going, "Oh my god," and looking up and away from the action because I cannot stand watching. I've broken a lot of bones, and I'm pretty unresponsive when I broke my collarbone. I was like, "Oh shit, I think I dislocated my shoulder." Whatever. It's not the pain, it's the worry for me. I'm very empathetic when it comes to it, and I have seen superstars' career ends, and if somebody like Stephanie Vicure at this point in her career went into this match and got seriously injured, that shapes the rest of her career. That derails so much for her, so much momentum, and that's the fear for me. It's not, oh, she's gonna break her leg. She's gonna break her leg, and it's gonna directly alter the course of wrestling history here.
Also, I have to point it out because you just did it, but you did it so many you continuously do it, but you did it multiple times through your watch along. I love the Shockmaster callback that you keep doing. It's phenomenal.
Wait,
if you don't know what we're talking about, you don't deserve to know.
What if I don't know?
You don't know what you're doing?
No.
What the hell? Because you keep going, "Oh god," and you do it exactly like Ric Flair does. You do it exactly like Ric Flair does when the Shockmaster fell through the wall. Are you kidding me? You're not doing it on purpose?
I'm not. That's amazing. It probably subconsciously. Probably like I heard that and I was like, "Oh, that's really cool. I'm gonna start doing that." And now it's just ingrained in my head. I wouldn't doubt that. But that's really funny. Wow.
That's amazing. Okay, anyway. Moving on, August.
Men's Intercontinental Championship match. An impromptu challenge from Dominik Mysterio from earlier in the night. What was the name of the pay-per-view they did?
It was Worlds Collide, and it was them and AAA going at it. It was amazing. I haven't watched all of it yet. I haven't watched it top to bottom, but I've seen a few highlights. I know you've seen a few highlights. So we'll talk about that at a later date, but right now what we need to focus on is the WWE debut of Octagon Jr. as well as a bunch of other AAA names that showed up for this match.
Yeah, I mentioned this during the live stream that Dominik is almost the perfect star to introduce so many of these people against because his style meshes very well with all of them. But his character is off the charts. If you need somebody to help you get certain characters over, Dominik Mysterio is that guy who you can pair somebody up against him, and no matter who that person is, they are going to be cheered through the roof because of how much people love, quote-unquote, /hate Dominik Mysterio. And I really like... Dominik had a great performance here, and I also mentioned how brilliant it was in character for him because... At face value, this looks like, oh wow, Dominik is a fighting champion. He went out, he found a challenger, he inserted himself on this pay-per-view card, and he said, "I want this match, I want to do this, we're gonna do it." However, this is just hours after Octagon Jr. was involved in a hellacious tag team match. So, Octagon obviously going into this match way less than 100%. And so Dominik had a pretty easy night for himself. He just had to make sure to have a emergency in his back pocket there, which he had in Liv Morgan. So Dom looking really, really good here, in my opinion, and also really sleazy, but he can play it off very easily that, no, he's a fighting champion. I really like this.
I liked it too, and I loved the introduction of Mr. Iguana, or whatever his name is. I want to call him Iguana Jr. because everyone's a freaking junior. I'm loving the introduction of him to WWE. The crowd is already going wild for him. He's already having an insane amount of merch sales for a new t-shirt. Just imagine when they start printing out that freaking puppet. This man is going to be making this company buco bucks, and this was the perfect way to bring him in. Another thing I really want to touch on, Dom got to do something very special this past weekend when he finally got to bring the Intercontinental Championship to visit his father, Eddie Guerrero. Really how special of a moment that was.
Yeah, really, really touching moment where he said this was the first time, I believe he said this, that it was his first time visiting Eddie's grave without his father. Without Rey
Wow.
Mysterio, sorry, his adopted father.
His adopted father, of course.
Really, really cool moment to get to see. I just love how much Dom is so good in this character role and how he lives it. He single-handedly, he's keeping kayfabe alive in terms of all this stuff.
Him and Liv are doing great.
Even when, like, you see his backstage interactions and when he's, like, being nice and still taking pictures with kids, and he still does it kind of in a sleazy way. It's a very Dominik way where he's like, no, I'll take this picture, but I'm the greatest of all time, and you gotta say my dad sucks, and then I'll take the picture kind of stuff.
Yeah. Or he's like, oh, hey, yeah, is this your dad? Is he a deadbeat like mine? Cool. Awesome. Yeah.
He's just so good, and it makes him so likable, which is so funny, because the stuff that he's saying makes him so unlikable. And he's so clean. Did you see his interview with Stephanie that he did for Stephanie's new show?
I've watched a few clips of it. Unfortunately, I've not seen a lot of it, but they were talking about how they showed it. I've seen a few. One of them is like they show a picture of him when he was little, and she's like, "Oh, you were so cute." He's like, "Yeah, right? Cuter than Aaliyah or Aliyah."
Oh my
sister.
god! I saw my favorite one is Stephanie saying, "What are some adjectives people in your life would use to describe you?" And he said, yeah, what's an adjective?" He's just so good.
Oh.
He's so good.
And there's also the one where they're talking about Vince, and he's like, yeah, growing up, all I knew about Vince was that he loved cocks. And talking about that,
Yeah.
and then Stephanie goes, cocks are roosters, Dom. He's like, oh, you learn something new every day.
You had to like look at the camera and be like, we're a PR disaster here. They're roosters. He loves roosters.
It's not the cocks, it's the Vince. Let's be real.
Jesus Christ. But yeah, Dom is
good.
so good. I'm glad he got... This is a weird decision by Triple H. This is 2 pay-per-view shows we've seen in a row from him now, where he throws matches on very, very, very last minute. And you can even count WrestleMania.
Yes.
You can count WrestleMania in that. Half the damn show was thrown on last minute. So it's very like, they're waiting till the very end, which... I don't know if it's a smart idea. Another thing we need to talk about, a lot of the arena was not full at the beginning of the show.
Yeah, my dad and I were talking about that. We were watching the women's match, and a huge chunk of the seats right directly in front of the camera, right behind the ring, were empty, especially that one section directly below what looked to be like a production area type of situation. But yeah, there was an entire section just completely empty, right where the camera focuses. They did end up making their way to their seats, at the end of the 6th entrant, basically. But I also know that WWE hires seat fillers so that they fill seats that are on the camera side so it doesn't look empty. So I want to know where those people were, which maybe those were all seat fillers and then everybody else had to file into their spots.
Well,
so,
what I will say...
it was whack.
What I will say is there was several... but quite a few people requested WWE actually delay the show because the show was advertised as sold out. However, there was a protest ongoing outside of the stadium during this time, separate from WWE, which made it a lot slower. They weren't protesting WWE. It wasn't like an R-Truth kind of thing.
I mean, it should have been.
But it really slowed down the line and people being able to make it to their seats on time. And WWE/TKO decided to hell with it and ran the show on time as opposed to delaying it for the people who were in attendance but couldn't make it to their seat in time because of the protest delays.
That is actually something I was wondering about. Unfortunately, I didn't take the time to actually look it up, but I was noticing that people were filing in after that. So I was wondering, like, is this a situation where they had to file everybody out after Worlds Collide and then back in because they were separate tickets in the same arena or something nonsensical like that? Or if there was something external like a protest or like a heat wave, or if it was just a really shitty security line and crappy ticket machines and things like that, because we ran into problems like that at WrestleMania 32 when we were there, me and my dad, because we showed up an hour and a half, 2 hours early, and we didn't get in until after the Ryback and Kalisto match was almost over. So
you didn't miss anything. You didn't miss anything.
I know I didn't. That's why I told my dad, I'm like, if we're gonna miss one match, at least it's this one.
That's true.
But yeah. I was wondering, if there was a situation like that, because after that, I mean, they did start to file in pretty smoothly after that, but yeah, it was wild. And of course, of all the matches that people are going to be missing and the seats are going to be empty for, of course, from the outside looking in, of course, it's going to be the women's match, which is such bullshit, because that was one of, if not the match of the night. The women stole the freaking show, as always.
Speaking of women stealing shows, Miss Destiny Diamond, I think you owe me and our audience an apology, because Lyra stole the goddamn show here. This was performance of the night, in my opinion, and the performance of her career. I was blown away by how good she did here, and to me, Becky Lynch versus Lyra was match of the night, bar none. Across the board, this match had me fully invested, start to finish. I could not have been happier with how this match played out. What were your thoughts?
I owe absolutely nobody an apology, because I have said I may not be a Lyra fan, but she consistently gets better week after week after week. She gets better and better and better, thanks to the help from Becky Lynch. When you surround yourself with greatness, it's only going to elevate you. She has been blowing my mind recently, and I have said that on the podcast. Now, did she have the performance of the night? Yes. It was incredible. These two women absolutely killed it. I love how much praise you had for Becky Lynch and her look, because I 100% agree. Her coming out with the whole leather on, puffy leather jacket, leather shorts and whatnot, it's overdone, it's overplayed, it needs to go away with this new resurgence of her and her career. So her coming out in the tank top and the baggy pants, she looked like such a freaking badass, especially with her being all taped up. That woman, wristband, Anyway, that woman absolutely looked like a freaking star, and she made Lyra look like a star alongside her. It was brilliantly done, and I loved the stipulation that they had added. We didn't talk about this last week, but they had added a stipulation where if Becky won, Lyra had to raise her hand in victory, and if Lyra won, Becky could no longer challenge for the Intercontinental Championship as long as Lyra was champion. That was not something that I took into consideration last week when I was doing my predictions. Otherwise, I would have had a more solid prediction. But I have to say, I was correct in Becky walking out triumphant. But I did not see it going down the way it did, and it was absolutely brilliant. These two killed it. They had an absolute banger of a match, as the Irish always do, and I'm excited to see what happens with this feud and this title scene moving forward, especially after what happened Monday. No spoilers.
No spoilers. Yeah, Becky Lyra was just so incredible. If you take the time, and this is a lot, because this whole show, top to bottom, was really, really good. If you have time to watch any match, in my opinion, this is the one to go back and watch. These women did such a phenomenal job. And I literally shouted at the screen saying Triple H and Randy Orton at WrestleMania 25. That's what their match should have been. These women, there was no lockups. There was no arm drags. These women were beating the shit out of each other from the get-go. Becky hit one of the scariest looking power bombs I think I have ever seen in my life. I like screamed at the screen, oh my god, because I could not believe Lyra was still alive somehow. These women took each other to the next level. They did a great false finish where they did the 10 count on the outside of the ring. Becky geniusly slipping into the ring beforehand to reset the ref's count, which also bought Lyra enough time to regain her composure to actually hit Becky, and then both women were down to the count of like 9.5, and they both barely got in the ring, and the audience bought it. The audience started booing. They were pissed because they're like, this is double count out. This is so dumb. And the women got back in the ring, and the audience erupted. And my favorite part of this whole thing was at the beginning of the match, they were shouting, let's go Becky, Becky sucks. And by the end of the match, they were shouting, let's go Lyra. She is incredible. She is very quickly climbing up the ranks for me as a great of today, and I can't wait to see what else we have in store. now that she is no longer the Women's Intercontinental Champion. And it is now firmly around the waist of the man.
Now, you mentioned something, that how great of a show this was top to bottom. Can we just talk about how badly WWE needed it? Especially after the stinker that was Saturday night's main event, where it was 50% commercials and it was just ass. And also after all of the bad stuff that happened, with all the bad publicity, with R-Truth, with Carlito, with Sarah Logan, all the other releases, as well as, the controversies coming out of WrestleMania 41 even. For them to put out a banger of a pay-per-view like this is what they needed, and I hope that they're able to capitalize on it and consistently put on good shows like this moving forward, and also fix their mistakes like they did later in the night. No spoilers.
And not only that, but it was just a day overall. This and Worlds Collide top to bottom, I've heard nothing but good things heading out of both shows. So it was a really hitting two hammer heads with one nail. Yeah, it was something else. It was something else. You're welcome. Pending trademark. You can't use that. Only I can. Not you, Destiny. I'll share with you. The audience can't use that.
Okay.
I was a really big fan of this. And what I was not a fan of is having to remove my jaw from the floor when it was announced that the men's Money in the Bank ladder match was next. Because that meant... Yeah. That meant the men's tag team match between Cena and Logan Paul versus Uso and Cody Rhodes was going to main event the show. Which to me...
Crazy.
I speculated from the very beginning that as soon as I saw the women were starting the show, WWE has a habit of course they want the big thing to happen last. So yes. When the women started the show, I said we're going to have... I don't think it's going to be Rhea winning this match because that's a great way to end your show to go home on. So I kind of put Rhea at the back of my mind there. But ultimately, I was quiet for the most part because I didn't know if the men's tag or the men's ladder match was main eventing. And the fact that the men's tag was main eventing scared the shit out of me because I then thought the only reason they would have this main event is fucking Travis Scott coming out and helping John Cena once again. I did say about 40 times, I also think The Rock is going to come out this time. I think Travis Scott's going to be a fake out because they had to do something big that the audience could get behind. If they just did Travis Scott again, WWE would be in such hot water with fans right now. But I genuinely did think at this point in time, as the men started coming out for the ladder match, I genuinely thought Travis Scott is going to come out as the false finish of the match, and then The Rock is going to come out, and then I thought Roman was going to return and kind of have a stare down with The Rock and Cena with Roman and Cody. So that was my big prediction leading into the end of this match, depending on if Roman makes an appearance to screw over Seth or not in the men's Money in the Bank ladder match. Now, that being said, let's talk, about the men's Money in the Bank ladder match.
Before we do, I have two things that I really want to touch on. One of them is something that I was very interested that you did not mention in your watch-along, and that was the fact that The Rock's mom was at ringside in the audience. I don't even know if you saw that.
I did.
But you didn't mention it, and I'm just like that scared me, because I'm like, what do you mean The Rock's going to come back at Money in the Bank? That doesn't make sense. That doesn't work. I don't like it. Why would he be at Money in the Bank and not WrestleMania? That's absolute garbage. But, I was like, you know what? Maybe he's coming back. I really, really, really did think that there was a good possibility of that happening. Now, something I think that was very interesting was that, like you said, the tag team match was the main event. But it's not just any tag team match. You have the WWE Champion and the World Heavyweight Champion both in action in the main event after a Mr. Money in the Bank is crowned. And especially with how physical those four are, I was almost wondering, and I didn't think they were going to do it truly because of last year and all of the same night cash-ins they've done recently, but I was wondering if they were in danger with Seth Rollins, the eventual winner of this match, spoiler alert. But I was wondering, if the tag team match with both champions is happening with these heavy hitters, do we see a cash in? Because I think that that's interesting that you would put the Money in the Bank ladder match first.
Yeah, getting into the match itself, I've heard both sides of this argument of the men's match was better versus the women's match was better. What I will bring up is a quote from Chris Jericho regarding his 2008 World Heavyweight Championship ladder match against Shawn Michaels, in which he said him and Shawn were very old at that stage in their career. Ironic, considering that was almost 20 years ago and Jericho is still going.
Insane.
But he mentioned the fact that they are old and they are not young men anymore, and their bodies could not withstand just being thrown off the ladder. They weren't interested in going out there and just diving off of a ladder through tables. So instead, they wanted to utilize the ladder as a weapon in ways that hadn't been done before. And if you haven't seen that match, I believe it was at No Way Out 2008. I'm not positive. I'll have to double check that. But it was a hell of a ladder match, and they utilized the ladder as a weapon. And I don't mean just picking it up and hitting each other. I mean, they used it as like a seesaw, just in very unique ways. And it's my favorite
Chris Jericho
style.
ended up with a busted tooth.
He did. It's my favorite way to utilize in a ladder match. And the men's ladder match was very spot heavy, was very WrestleMania 17 of let's climb the ladder, let's fall off the ladder, let's push each other off the ladder. The women's ladder match was very Chris Jericho, Shawn Michaels, and that's what I kept mentioning was they're very physical with this ladder. They're utilizing it as an actual weapon and not just let's climb and then fall and then climb and then fall. So for me, it was a very distinct separation. The only moment that kind of made me like, okay, what are we doing here, was when they set the ladder up in the exact same way in the men's match that the women's match was done, where they had the ladder diagonally placed in the center of the ring and then ran a ladder attaching the center rope to the middle of the ladder, and they did that for the men's and the women's match. Spots like that are really cool. It should not happen on the same show in two different matches. And that is not a knock on the talent. That is a knock on the agents. Those agents should be communicating. Yes. It's like if 3 different matches are like, oh, hey, let's have a roll-up for our finish of tonight. It kind of ruins the overall vibe of the show because you go home and you're like, well, 2 matches ended in disqualification. 3 ended in a roll-up. What the fuck? So it's stuff like that where WWE really needs to, and I really feel like there's a lack of communication between the agents in terms of, you see that a lot, where it's a lot of roll-up finishes, a lot of false, a lot of interference, stuff like that, and you need to make sure each match stands on its own as its separate thing. You can have similar spots across matches, you're going to have to with 5 matches on a show, but try very hard to make each match stand out. And with the exception of that one spot, these ladder matches were entirely different stories, and I really, really appreciated that, because that's something you do not see in these dual-branded pay-per-views here with 2 Money in the Bank ladder matches, for them to be so insanely different.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, because you talked about how you've seen people say the men's match was better and the women's match was better. I honestly can't pick a winner because they were so vastly different in the most perfect way possible. The only thing that brings the men's down a peg for me personally, this doesn't necessarily go for everybody, but it was how much interference there was. Now, obviously, it makes sense that Jacob and JC would come out to support Solo, or so we thought. It makes even more sense that Braun and Bronson would come out and support Seth. What I'm not the biggest fan of is the fact that both teams came out. I just think that for me personally, it was too much interference. Now, with that being said, I am very intrigued because obviously the interference was done quite differently. But I'm very intrigued by the story that they're going to be telling moving forward with Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu. I loved the moment where he screamed, "I hate you, Solo!" It was a perfect callback to everything they've been doing, and it's brilliant. And I'm glad that Jacob Fatu is finally dropping the dead weight of Solo Sikoa. He no longer needs it. I love that propels Solo forward into a whiny little, "Why'd you do that to me? How could you do this to me? I'm your blood, I'm your family, I brought you into this business. How could you do this to me?" And that whole story moving forward. I loved how Braun and Bronson helped out. Seth Rollins, with Braun Breaker spearing El Grande Americano out of Chad Gable's boots. I thought that was fantastic. Everybody in this match was absolutely solid. Andrade took quite a few more not so great bumps, if you know what I mean, throughout this match, accidentally.
Charlotte Flair made the right call.
Won.
Okay, that's crazy.
That was wild.
Can't have
that
kids
was
anymore.
wild.
Man can't have kids. It was like 3 minutes into the match. This man took a ladder directly into the crotch by accident. It was hard to watch.
It was insane. God. He visibly flinched. But the right man won. There's no denying it. If Seth Rollins is going to be in this match, he needed to win. And you can't have him lose a qualifying match, especially with Braun and Bronson in his corner, with Paul Heyman in his corner. This was absolutely what he needed and what his faction needed to propel them into legitimacy, because right now they're just 4 guys that are all together with a common goal, but that doesn't mean anything if you're not winning matches. And now here Seth Rollins is winning the Money in the Bank briefcase. I couldn't be happier. He deserves it, and it brings legitimacy and cohesiveness to their group. Now, as I mentioned, I mentioned this in our predictions video, Seth Rollins doesn't have to lift a finger now. He can let the other 2 do his dirty work, do the heavy lifting, get their hands dirty. He doesn't have to do anything until he wants to cash in, and that is exciting. I'm excited to see. Something I want to touch on is I am worried about my pick, LA Knight, and where he goes from here. Because I have been saying it for months that him losing the championship at WrestleMania was the best thing that could have happened to him, because it's going to propel him into victory in the Money in the Bank ladder match, and he was going to be the next Mr. Money in the Bank. Obviously, that did not happen. And honestly, the story was not there for him to win the Money in the Bank ladder match. It didn't feel like it was going to happen. It didn't make sense that it was going to happen. It was all Seth Rollins. It was the Seth Rollins show, as it should have been. But I just feel like it took so much away from LA Knight, and I just don't know where he goes from here. Obviously, he got involved on Monday Night Raw, which was spectacular to see, and I'm loving seeing this new side of him. But we will save that for a later date. I am worried about where things are going to go for him, but I'm also excited to see where things are going to go for him. And congratulations to your new Mr. Cash in the App, Seth Rollins.
So, if you're wondering why it says Cash in the App recap, it's because WWE was insane enough to say, hey, you know what the Money in the Bank briefcase needs is a Cash App logo plastered on the side of it. So in order to make fun of them, the entire show I called it the Cash in the App. They really can't let any dime they can squeeze out of something, they're going to try to squeeze it out of it. Which just made me roll my eyes, which even more so because it was the stupidest fucking backstage segment I have ever seen between Chad Gable and the Creed brothers, where they decided they were going to use a what the hell kind of cinnamon flavor fireball ladder. So they had ladders with the Fireball brand plastered across them, which if that wasn't bad enough, honestly though, it was a good color. Like the red ladder pops really cool. The Fireball logo, whatever, but the fact they did a whole backstage segment pretending this was El Grande Americano's secret weapon, this is how he was going to win the match, is because he knew about the Fireball ladders, was the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. What the hell was even that? And I don't remember what Creed brother it was, but his acting, he was the dude standing in the middle. His acting had me rolling on the floor. I was like, what the fuck am I even watching? What is happening right here? It was pretty good. I just couldn't believe. Oh. Ultimately,
I love the Creed brothers with all my heart. I love them so much, and I want to see more of them. They need a tag title run right now, immediately. They needed it months ago.
Oh, the worst part of the night for me, there was a spot where they had the ladder set up diagonally, and they had one ladder leaning against the turnbuckle, and another one leaning on the outside of the ring against the turnbuckle. And El Grande ran up the one on the outside of the ring, and he jumped and springboarded off of the ropes, holding the other ladder, and smashed into the other one, got up to the top of the ladder, and started hitting, was it Penta at the top of the ladder? It wasn't Rollins, it wasn't Knight.
I think it was Penta. Don't quote me on that, though.
Whoever it was.
But it makes sense.
Oh my god, they did a move off the top of the ladder that was essentially like a reverse rock bottom, right? They both land back first on the mat with their heads slamming into the mat. The problem was...
Your reaction to this.
There was a ladder in the ring right next to where they landed, and from the camera shot they showed, where it's showing you their feet, it looked like El Grande smashed the back of his head into that ladder at 40 miles an hour, and I genuinely thought his career was over. I was like, we just watched two men end their entire careers. I genuinely said it, and then I had to apologize on stream because I got everybody worked up that two men just died. But it was literally about an inch and a half off from them cracking the back of their skulls on that ladder from like a 20-foot drop. Honestly, terrifying. The refs. I get that ladder was involved in a later spot, but that there needs to be some forewarning. There needs to be some planning. The safety is the number one important thing. I would much rather see a spot canceled or a spot gone wrong in the sense of it looks a little hokier and guarantee the safety of the superstars any day of the week than I'd rather see a really cool spot gone wrong and two men's lives or careers are over. Holy shit, that got me totally worked up.
Dude, you literally thought they died. Like, your reaction was so genuinely, like, you were terrified. And that just shows how dangerous this sport really is and why we don't try this at home, because it does end careers and it does end lives, and it's absolutely insane what those two men were able to do. I can't believe they came out unscathed in that moment. I'm just, gives me chills. It gives me chills.
Ultimately, the internet seems more pissed than anything about the fact that Seth Rollins walks away Mr. Money in the Bank. To me, this was why? This was literally the only winner. I love Solo, but Solo stole the show, in my opinion, by the way. I referred to him during this as a, quote, like a modern-day version of Will Smith. Like, if Will Smith from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was in wrestling today as a Samoan, it's Solo Sikoa. I'm sorry. Hashtag not sorry. Hashtag I'm a genius. He is so funny. His physicality and how he's just like, and like throws his shoulders into everything he does is so Will Smith coded, and it is so fucking funny to me. He's incredible. He's incredible. What a fucking act. If you hate this man, I hate you. I love you, Solo.
Y'all, this man literally called me while I was driving home. I had finished his watch along, and I had so many bullet points that I wanted to hit. But the main one was, how the fuck can you call Solo Sikoa the Samoan Fresh Prince version of Will Smith? You can't. It's sick, it's wrong, and I hate you. But there is something else I want to touch on, because you said save it for the pod. What the hell do you mean, the more rings around the nipple, the older the luchador?
Yeah, the literally, Wade Barrett is the greatest commentator WWE's seen since Jerry the King Lawler left the table. Incredible. There was a spot where at the beginning of the match, Michael Cole spent the first 10 minutes Jesse Venturaing himself, where he refused to give up that he was wrong, and just kept saying, no, it's Chad Gable, I have proof. And literally Wade Barrett at one point said, look at them, they're completely different nipples. And I lost it. I was like, what the fuck did he just say? And then he said, and then just out of nowhere, almost unprompted, he goes, you can tell how old a luchador is by counting the number of rings around the nipples. And I just lost, that's it. He's the greatest. He's the fucking, goddamn. Jim Ross has cancer, by the way. Seemingly, his surgery went well. This seems like a really weird side tangent. So, Jim Ross, we wish you a very speedy recovery, sir. However, your top spot, sir, as the greatest commentator of all time, it's in jeopardy. Wade Barrett's giving you a run for the money. He's giving you a cash for the app right now. I want you to know. Wade Barrett was incredible.
I'm gonna cry. And I rewatched our WrestleMania recap, and we talked about how this was Wade Barrett's first WrestleMania as a commentator, how overdue that was, because that was so deserving. This man is so phenomenal. I'm loving everything he's doing. It's just so crazy that this was his first, but it's the first of many, and I'm loving everything he's doing, and I can't wait to see him continuing to be amazing on commentary moving forward, especially for the luchadors, and with the acquisition of AAA, and more luchadors are going to be coming his way. It's amazing. But
speaking of amazing,
we have our main event to talk about.
Yeah.
You good, bro?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Sorry, can you pause for a sec? It said stream paused, and I wonder if there was an internet glitch on one of our parts. Sorry.
Might have been. Is it back?
It's back now. Okay, anyway.
Okay.
Our main event, the men's tag team match with Logan Paul and John Cena versus Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes. From the moment that Cody's music hit, I was riled up, I was fired up, because what do you mean Cody Rhodes is the first man to come out? I was mind blown. And then, of course, Jey Uso, the World Heavyweight Champion, so it does make sense, comes out, does his whole entrance, does the whole thing, then they're in the ring together, and he pauses. He's like, oh, encore, encore, are we getting an encore? And then as he's about to do it, Logan's music hit. How perfect that was. So perfect for him. And then, of course, John Cena makes his beautiful entrance as always. The chemistry and the storytelling and the connection that was between John Cena and Logan Paul was so beautiful and so brilliantly done. I absolutely love, like, if John was doing something, Logan was either mirroring it or calling it out or telling people to shut up or clapping for Cena, and then Cena in turn did the same for Logan Paul. You never see stuff like that anymore between tag teams, and I absolutely loved it, especially for a tag team in their first tag team match. It was amazing, and I love the chemistry they had. I also love when they started to have trouble in paradise, and they were arguing, and it got amplified so quickly to the shoving, to the yelling, to the screaming. Absolutely brilliant. All of the incredible spots in this match as well. Logan Paul having the drone in his hand for his suplex and then getting Uso splashed? Are you kidding? Phenomenal. That poor drone.
That poor Uso.
My
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I was going to say, my favorite moment of the match was the springboard backflip moonsault from Logan Paul onto Jey Uso onto the table. How beautifully executed it was. And you called out Logan Paul's 1,000-yard stare. How beautifully he sells it. This man just gets wrestling unlike anyone else in this business, and I absolutely love it. John Cena is his perfect tag team partner. I know it was a one-off, and they will never tag again at this point, especially after all the drama that went down. But holy God. Now, there was a moment in this match, but before we get to it, I need to let you speak. I know that I've been rambling, but this match was absolutely phenomenal, and it was way better than it had any right to be. I enjoyed it thoroughly. So, August, lay it on me. What are you thinking about this match?
Logan Paul and his drone is probably my favorite tag team of all time. By the way, he brought the drone out during his entrance.
Hold on. Wait. What if Logan Paul's drone is Braun Strowman's mystery tag team partner?
It's funny because when you said wait, I knew exactly where you were going with this.
I know you did, but that's because I had to. Please, I'm so sorry, but I had to. Please continue. Logan Paul and his drone is your favorite tag team of all time. Yeah. That poor drone.
He brings it out during his entrance at Money in the Bank, and he launched it in the air from his hand, and they kept one steady shot of them zooming and showing the entire arena, and then it came back to Logan Paul in the ring, and he re-caught it in his hand. An amazing shot. Really, really, really cool cinematography. And Logan bringing it back in the match later, as Destiny brought up, where he was going to use it when he hit essentially like as a selfie stick when he's going for a big move, and then it ended up getting countered, and instead we get to watch him get obliterated by the Avalanche superplex there, and then getting Uso splashed, which poor Uso landed directly on this friggin' drone. Ouch, that hurt. I think my favorite part of the match, the hot tag setup, was so long. They did a couple quick hot tags early on, of course, and then Jay just got brutalized by John and Paul for the entirety of the match, and Cody could not get a tag in to save his life. And the reason why Jay was finally able to get the tag was because friggin' Cena and Paul started arguing. And I know this spot has been done before, but off the top of my head, I could not list you a time I have seen it done where the two heels are arguing, and that is why the hot tag is made, and both guys are in the ring, and they both turn and look, and it's the most cartoonish, over-the-top moment where they both look, and they're essentially like, oh, shit! And then Cody starts beating the fuck out of both of them. What an incredible moment. Yeah, for me,
so good. And
best moment of the match.
And as you were talking about, maybe it's been done before, but when the hell was the last time that you saw something like that? It was brilliantly executed. This match was phenomenal. Now, the highlight of the night. Now, you mentioned the biggest thing they could do.
Well, before you go into this, I want to do a quick... Yes, exactly the follow-up. Our minds are in the exact same place. I'm sorry I cut you off because I thought you were going to bring up something else.
No, you're good. I was going to say that you said the biggest thing that they could do was bring in The Rock and Roman Reigns. There's nothing bigger they could do than that. They topped it. Because, bro, now, phenomenal. Excuse me. Sorry, it says paused again. Why does it keep doing that? Sorry, Augie. I apologize. So, I gotta tell you, I was watching Money in the Bank on my phone at my grandma's house with my family just in the background. It was just on my phone, and all of a sudden I look and I see somebody came out and attacked Cena. And the reveal happened. And I immediately grabbed my phone, ran to my dad, pulled the clip up on Twitter, I held it up to him, and I said, Dad, watch this. And I pushed play, and I was like, who do you think it is? And he says, is it CM Punk? And then the reveal happens. My dad screamed. He was like, oh my God! If we had been watching this at home, I would have leapt to my feet and ran around the room and screamed. This is the greatest return in the history of wrestling. Because what the hell? It was like, my dad is not an emotional person whatsoever. I swear this man had a tear in his eye. I swear he had a tear in his eye seeing the return of R-Truth to WWE, coming in as Ron Killings, coming in to take out his childhood hero, coming in to take what's his. It was so brilliantly done. Michael Cole and Wade Barrett sold it perfectly. You even called it out about how brilliant it was. That Wade Barrett said, because Michael Cole said, oh, we thought he left the company, and you mentioned Wade Barrett saying, maybe no one told him. How good that was. This was so brilliantly executed. In the pop, the crowd lost their damn minds. This was the biggest thing they could do. This is bigger than Rock. This is bigger than Roman. This is bigger than Rock and Roman. This is Ron freaking Killings. I'm so excited to see what happens. And the best part is, it sounds like he's not just writing out the rest of his contract. It does sound like he got a new deal. So, thank you, TKO, for doing the right thing. I'm so excited to see where this leads. I'm excited for the new and improved Ron Killings. Fuck
TKO. Nick Khan is the one to thank for this, as literally Truth ignored WWE's calls all week after the initial tweet he sent out saying that they essentially lowballed him and he's done. And it wasn't until Nick Khan himself, the day before the show, contacted Truth and was finally able to come to terms on a new contract. Now,
Hallelujah.
leading into this for me, when men's Money in the Bank ended and Seth Rollins won, two things were very notably stuck out to me. One was no CM Punk, despite the fact that in the main event of Monday Night Raw, the week of the show, Seth Rollins cost CM Punk his spot in Money in the Bank. CM Punk was suspiciously absent from this night tonight. The other thing to note was the fact that this match went on last meant something big had to happen. Seth Rollins is a huge name and is a huge statement, especially with Paul Heyman, with Braun Breaker, and with Bronson Reed, is a huge statement to end the show. So the fact they didn't end it with that meant something had to be coming in this main event. I genuinely, the entire match, I kept saying, like, we're going to get Travis Scott, we're going to get Travis Scott. And then the moment happened where somebody jumped the ring, and I don't know what it was that just made it click in my head, but the second I saw a person get in the ring, Cena had just hit Cody with the championship belt. I just knew it was truth. I said it on stream. I was like, oh my god, it's R-Truth. And yeah, he did the mini beatdown, then he turned around, he slowly took the mask off, and it was R-Truth. And it was the right call. This was really good. I do think we're going to talk about this because we're going to talk about this whole R-Truth situation. In fact, that video probably went up yesterday, and you guys have already heard us talk about the R-Truth situation because I really want to get that video out sooner because it is very important to talk about. But we both have a lot of thoughts on this with R-Truth, with Ron Killings, this whole thing that they're doing here, and what this means for the WWE and TKO moving forwards. I am very happy to see Truth back. I'm very happy to see this is what cost Cena this match. But I'm also kind of bittersweet about it because I don't know. I genuinely don't know if Truth has a full run in him from TKO's perspective. I think Truth could do it. I think Ron Killings has years left in him as a performer. I don't think TKO is going to let him do that. I think TKO is going to use this as an opportunity to essentially write off his character instead of erasing him. And we will talk more about that, or already have in the R-Truth video that either goes up tomorrow or yesterday. Destiny, any last thoughts on this show? Overall, I still walked away saying Becky Lynch, Lyra, Valkyria, for me, was match of the night. I was not mad at any of these winners. I think everybody who should have won ended up winning. And WWE needed a big win, and they had it with this show.
That's what I was going to say. They needed a big show they needed a good show, and this is the best show they've had in a while. So congrats to them on that, and congrats to all of the performers. I personally can't choose a match of the night because everything top to bottom was phenomenal, but I can tell you that the moment of the night was obviously the return of R-Truth and Ron Killings, and how that all played out so perfectly. I'm excited to see what happens moving forward, especially after watching Monday Night Raw, so that is exciting. I cannot wait to see what happens between now and SummerSlam and through the rest of the year. I do feel like right now, strangely enough, it's like, you know, wrestling is a continuous thing, but it's almost like this wrestling as we know it will end in December, and we all know it. So it's hard to look beyond December, and I don't know if anyone's going to be able to. I think that it's just looking forward up to December, and then after that, figure it out from there. But until next time, make sure that you are an organ donor on your driver's license. Be pink, be sparkly, be you, and make sure that you just enjoy freaking wrestling while also calling out the powers that be on their bullshit.
She said some smart stuff. You should listen to her.